Don't sit too close to the screen, it'll rot your brain. The Idiot's Lantern, boy, this is a heck of a one to get to. Some years ago, back when I did a 10 worst episodes of modern era Doctor Who, which is a video that's badly out of date, but I am really not in the mood to update or do a new version of. But anyway, at the time, I'm pretty sure I put this episode as my number one worst. Or if I didn't put it there, at the very least, I know I put The Wire as my number one worst one-time villain. So, like, I have a strong, pervasive, long-standing dislike of this episode on a lot of levels. But coming into it with that perspective, I was actually kind of excited to revisit it. Not that I thought it would suddenly be good, but what I've learned doing this series and giving a rewatch oftentimes to episodes that I haven't seen in a while is that I can spot the things that are good that I didn't remember or didn't notice. And there is some of that here. There is some good stuff going on. It doesn't save the episode, not even close, but let's talk about that first. So the rapport between Tennant and Rose, it keeps building, and I like the way, it's funny, I'm realizing now how there's a pretty solid arc of their interactions and the building of sort of their very cavalier attitude about what they do and where they go and what they encounter that does ultimately come back to bite them at the end of the series. Spoilers? No, come on. But it is interesting to sort of see that at play here. It gets called out by Queen Victoria in the second episode, and to see it keep playing out, it's like, yeah, you guys really, you know, these are serious situations, these are life or death situations, and you treat it like it's a game. But at the same time, it is easy to get wrapped up in the fun that these two are having. So that is kind of cool. But I like that there is ultimately going to be consequences for that. Because if there weren't, then it would grate on me how cavalier they are about all this. I'm pretty sure I've used that word now twice in a video, and that's twice more than I probably used it in the last year. That's funny. So we get little fun touches like the fact that the TARDIS still doesn't land where or when the Doctor thinks it's going to, and I will always enjoy that. So that's good stuff. Some of the performances are actually pretty solid, and despite how much to my memory I hated The Wire, the actress who performs it is actually pretty well cast and really suited to the part. The problem is, and I'm gonna just start getting into the bad stuff now, sorry, the part is horrifically written. Because the reason she's good for it is that she has that sort of friendly, almost motherly tone that you would want for a character like this who's trying to evoke that era of television. And so when she is in this very pleasant voice, you know, laying out her intentions or being maniacal, but doing it in this calm, pleasant, are you sitting comfortably voice, it really works. The problem is that once we get to the halfway point, basically all she says is hungry or feed me, and God, I hate it. It's so repetitive, it's so hammy, and it is such an underutilization and completely misses what was working about the character prior to that. We go from the great juxtaposition of her maliciousness versus her way of communicating in terms of, you know, the way she spoke and the characterization, and that now gets completely wiped out for this generic crap. Oh, it's awful. And then the other thing that sinks it, aside from that, is one might argue the proper villain of the piece at least as much as The Wire, which is the father of this family. Now, it's not a bad idea to zero in on a family so that we have real personal stakes, because, you know, it's always a risk whenever you go, this could take over the whole of London or the world. Like, if we don't have a point of reference for, like, what that means. That's a very abstract concept. So giving us a family to focus on is not a bad idea. This father, though, and because I've railed on him before, I think two things. I think the writing is incredibly lazy, and I think the performance is terrible. Now, I've had people push back on me when I pointed that out before, saying that, no, there are, especially around that time, people like that, men like that, coming off the war and feeling like they had to be the king of their castle. That it is representative of something that did exist. And the thing is, when I call it cartoonish, which it is, that doesn't mean that no people like that ever existed. I could call a depiction of somebody from the South, in the U.S. going, oh, well, shucks, y'all, you ain't from around here, are you? As being cartoonish. It doesn't mean you couldn't find me a human being who actually thinks or talks or acts like that, but it doesn't make it any more believable in terms, it comes across as one-dimensional. Because if you're going to have a character that surface level, who is that immediately just one thing, and this guy is just a jerk. When you have someone who is just that much of one thing, unless you take the time to reveal that there's anything underneath that, it's going to be cartoonish. It's going to be oversimplified. And because he drives so much of the plot and so many things keep coming back to him, he just keeps undercutting what's going on over and over and over again. And again, I think the writing is lazy. This isn't me saying like he needed to have a redemption arc. Actually, I'll kind of come back to that. Hang on to that thought. But there's sort of I'm not saying that like, oh, he should have been more understanding. We should have gotten his perspective. No, I'll accept that he's a jerk, but like there's no sense of humanity anywhere under that. And I don't think you automatically weaken a villainous character by giving them humanity. I think in some ways that can make a monster more monstrous when you realize they are overriding the human parts of them that are still there and continuing to act like this. When you don't show that and all you've got is the surface level jerkery, then they come across as just not very human characters. And I do think the performance doesn't help. I'm sorry when he keeps going, I am talking. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for an instance. And again, maybe it's cultural. Maybe if I grew up in that area, maybe I would have met and known people like that. Maybe I could relate to it. I didn't. I can't. I'm sorry. I can only talk about the perspective that I have. And my perspective is that this guy is a joke. He's a joke of a human being, yes, but he's also a joke of a character. And considering he's trying to work as a part of the drama, it does not function at all. And coming back to what I said before about redemption, I had completely forgotten about this, and now rewatching it gives me all the more reason to hate this episode. I hate that at the very end, his wife has effectively kicked him out of the house. Good. His son's prepared to write him off, at the very least for the time being. And Rose says, go to him, because he's your dad. And it's framed like this is a good thing. And I wanted to just reach into the TV and smack Rose in the backside of the head. No! Like, it's one of the things that, and again, I'm not going to say that this is like, was ever an intentional conspiratorial undercurrent, but so much media pushes this idea of, well, they're your family, you gotta love them. Like, no, you don't. If somebody is that toxic, that hazardous, that dangerous to your life, I don't care if it's your father, I don't care if it's your brother, I don't care if it's your kid. You are within your rights to cut them out. And nobody has any business saying, well, no, you gotta go to him because he's your dad. No! Screw you, Rose. I understand you've got your own baggage because you didn't know your own dad, so I do get where that's coming from a little bit. And I'm not so, I know I said screw you, Rose. I'm actually not so mad at the character. I'm mad at the episode for framing it like that's a good idea. It's not. Best best case scenario, he needs time and distance from this guy, and that guy needs time and distance from his family so that he understands the consequences of what he did. If he gets thrown out of the house, but then immediately his son's like, it's okay, I'm still here for you, that immediately diminishes the consequences that he's suffering. He's not gonna feel like he's suffering all that much. He's gonna lose what little impetus there was for him to ever change. Because I do believe that people can change, but you know what is a big part of change? Self-reflection. And what this guy needs is to be cut off and isolated for a chunk of time so that he can think about stuff. You don't send his kid right back to him after that. Wow, I got a lot more worked up about that than I was planning to. But like it really ticked me off. And the thing was, up until the point that happened, I was prepared to say, you know what, this episode is not good, but it's not as bad as I used to bag on it. But then that happened, I went, oh my God, it is at least as bad as I used to bag on it, just for a reason other than what I used to bag on it for. But I think the reasons I've always been down on this episode are still there. I think both villainous characters are poorly written, and in the case of the father, really badly performed. And it's a shame, because there are potent ideas. The faceless people is a pretty cool image. I'm not sure the effect actually looks that great a fair amount of the time, but it's a decent enough idea. It's an unsettling visual. Like I said, the woman cast as the Wire was good for it until the writing completely fell out from under her. The Doctor getting a bit more vicious, I like pretty well. He delivers it decently. I do feel like Tennant gets maybe a little more sharp in his delivery when he does that than I would care for, but that's a personal preference thing, so I'm not even going to hold that against anything. But like so many things, there are good components here that are completely undercut, undermined, and fall apart under the weight of what doesn't work. And yeah, I still hate this episode. I think this is just terrible. And I know it gets lost in the conversation, particularly around Series 2, because this is the same series that has Fear Her and Love and Monsters. Oh, crap, I got those coming up soon. Oh, boy. But I feel like how bad this episode is gets lost in the shuffle, because it's not as memeable as the Absorb-a-Loft or, a Scribble Monster. But I'll have this hypothesis tested in a couple weeks. I do think it is at least as bad. And now at this point, bad in a way that actually makes me angry, which didn't used to be the case, funnily enough. So, The Idiot's Lantern. Man. Whew. Okay, I'm all right. What do you think about this one? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's a whole bunch of links down there as well, including one to the Patreon if you feel like supporting this channel in that fashion. It's been growing. It is a big help. Literally any amount does help. But there's a whole bunch of other links down there besides that you can check out if you want to. You don't want to look at those? That's okay too, because at the end of the day, folks, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.